Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And this is about how you can improve the caliber and the caliber of people and the quality of relationships with people that can support you along the way. And I'm so excited because Kathryn is here with us. And Kathryn Finney, I met for the first time when she was running a community of entrepreneurs in Atlanta as part of a group of VCs going around the country. She has since launched and is now the managing general partner of Genius Guild, which is a venture fund and a studio invests in Black founders who are building businesses that serve Black communities and beyond. And she's the author of a new book called Build the Damn Thing: How to Build a Successful Company When You're Not a Rich White Guy. There you go. And so we'll talk about what qualifies as that in a second. Because I kind of feel like a lot of white guys probably read this and think, I'm not a rich white guy, but more of them probably are than realize it in this.
Yeah.
But here's the question for today, which is about getting advice. So you can get career advice from lots of people. You can get career advice from Reddit, people in your life. How do I figure out who I should be asking for career advice? And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting question. And you should ask that question of people you want to be like. Like, who do you want to be? And why would you ask for advice from a career that you don't respect or someone you don't respect? And so I think the best place to get that advice is from people who have the career that you want to have. Those who are a couple of steps ahead of you, and asking them, how did they get there? What motivated them? Why did they choose this path? Because there's so many different ways you can do different things. And so I always feel like that answer is pretty simple.
And in practice, sorry, finish your thought.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think it's pretty simple and pretty direct.
One thing I've seen on that then is you have a lot of people who move through the world and they either think, I don't know the people who I want to be like. And, I say this as a white man, like my sense is that people from backgrounds that tend to be more discriminated against, they express feeling that much more often. But even I, like, all the privileges in the world, not say all the privileges in the world, but, straight white man in America, I felt like I didn't know those people.
Yeah.
And then, I am now on the receiving end of emails sometimes where somebody's like, I'd like you to be my mentor. I was like, you don't know me. I am a great disappointment as a mentor, is my guess. But like they decided that something about what I'm doing is something that they want to be like. And so when you don't know the people or when your network is limited, how do you think about it?
I have a good friend who once said to me, when you enter the room, you're the coolest person there. Especially when you enter rooms like in Silicon Valley. So as you know, Roy, I show up exactly like this.
You are you.
I am me. In real life, I am literally like this, even if I'm on Sand Hill Road versus if I'm at TED, if I'm wherever, I'm completely me. And when that friend said that to me, it made sense. When you are different, whether you're a woman of color, you come from an immigrant background, whatever it may be, you're different than the traditional idea of what a founder, what an investor, what a person is supposed to be. You stand out. And that's incredible, especially when people are in a sea of people who look all themselves. Like you are going to be the topic of conversation around dinner that night. Yeah. And so walk into any space realizing that you are the coolest person that they've met that day. And then understand the power behind that too. And how do you translate that into getting where you want to go? Whether it be you're raising a fund, whether you are raising money, whether you're looking for a job, either of those things, being different and embracing that and using that as like your superpower, I think is one of the things that can really help move you forward.
And are there techniques, like, can you remember in terms of moment? So I totally hear that in terms of like, in principle, what somebody ought to do. And then they're like, great, but I went in that room and I didn't feel like the coolest person. And I had Kathryn's advice in my head and then nobody wanted to talk to me or I couldn't be in the room with them. I needed to like reach out to them on, LinkedIn or Twitter or something like that. And so I'm curious in terms of like moments you can remember in your own experience or when people approached you as a mentor, which I'm sure happens a lot right now, how you think about what they ought to do.
So you know what I do? So the one thing that I do, I have a playlist on Spotify that's called, and I don't know if I can swear, but Bad Bitches.
No, you can swear. Yeah,
It's called the
we said
Bad
build the damn
Bitches.
thing, so you're good.
Yeah, it's called the Bad Bitches playlist, and it has
Okay.
like Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, Sweetie, like
You
all
play
the
the music, you psych yourself up.
and I listen to it, and it really does give me sort of the energy to go into the meeting of like, I am powerful, I am great. There's actually a song by a rapper called Little Baby Tate, where she goes all through and she says, you know, I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am rich, I am that bitch.
Mm.
I'm gonna get this bag and I'm not gonna take your shit. Like it's like the best song ever. And so if you want to get hyped up before going into a place, I listen to that and I come in with that sort of energy. And it's amazing how much that really helps. Um, Even when I don't feel like I'm the coolest person in the room, I listen to my music, I get sort of hyped up, and then I present myself in that way.
Yeah, and I got to be
Yeah.
honest. I've seen, there's that Kurt Vonnegut line of like, be careful what masks you wear or be careful you pretend to be because we whatever that line is, we become that. But there's a way to use it for you, which is, like I've always thought, seeing you in the rooms you're in as a person, not only with a lot of enthusiasm, but just confidence, like who seems to know where they belong. And any errors you find people making, like a lot of people approach you to be a mentor, anything where you're like, don't do that.
Well, they asked me to be a mentor and I don't know anything about them. and it's like, first, we have to develop a relationship. Mentorship is a relationship. It's not just, and it's energy, right? And I don't want to say I'm going to be a mentor to someone and not be able to deliver. And so it's a little bit like dating. Like you kind of have to give and take.
The same thing.
Right.
And like when people say like, if somebody says, will you be my mentor? It's kind of like, will you go steady with me? It's like,
yeah, will you be my boyfriend or girlfriend?
Yeah, but it's like, if you need to ask, it should just sort of naturally evolve. There are cases where you want to clarify, hey, is this what's happening here? Or express gratitude. Like I've had people who were mentors to me and who the relationship developed in such a way that it was never explicit. And I went back to them and I said, thank you for the effect you had on my life. I told somebody he's like a second father to me. And that was like a real moment for me. And I think for him, but I mean, just based on what it said on his face. So I love that. And I also love this idea that it's not all one person, that, you're not looking for the hero who is the role model in all ways. Anybody you look up to is going to have lots of flaws. The first thing I say to people when they're like, well, it seems like I could learn a blah, blah, blah. It's like, prepare to be disappointed because I'm a flawed human being who makes lots of mistakes. And my wife has this line, that you should have a mentor in every decade of their life. So no matter how old you are, you should have somebody in their 20s, somebody in their 30s, all the way through. And I've always really loved that idea. There's a book called The Council of Dads, and I just created a text message thread with a couple of dads based on it of like, hey, you're my counsel. And it's like, no one of them is going to be perfect in every one situation, but together there's like a team it's your private board of directors or whatever you might call it. And I think it's very powerful.
I talk about that in the book about creating your personal board of directors and how that's super, super important. And it's been really important for me. And this is whether you are starting
reading the synopsis of the book. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah.
No, sorry.
Now, the book is actually, it's really good. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote it, but
you can buy it right there, by the way.
Yeah.
You can swear here, but tinyurl wouldn't let me include the word damn. So build the D thing.
Okay.
tinyurl.com. That'll lead you to the Penguin website. But sorry, the book was, I interrupted again.
It is not like any other business book you've ever written. And I think anyone who's ever met me, have heard me speak or knows me knows, like, I actually write like I talk. And so, but in it, I talk about this personal advisor board. And it's like basically the people who are team you. So, when you're creating a business, you're creating an advisory board, and they're really to give you advice and guidance for the company. Well, your personal advisory board is to give advice and guidance for you. They are invested in the success of you. And it could be a traditional mentor. It could be family members. And so in my advisory board, one of the roles that I have is someone who can be a blocker. When you are a public person, you have a lot of people coming to you. And I have a lot of family that come to me in various different situations. And my blocker is actually my mom. And she's on my advisory board.
She runs defense for you.
She runs defense. She's a 75-year-old Black grandma. No one's going to say anything to her. Like
I'm afraid of her already. I didn't even.
Right. Her no is very definitive. She says it in the nicest way, but it's definitive. And it's been really helpful for me as a founder of color because there's a lot of expectations that are placed on us. And there's a lot of people who need our help. And as someone who wants to help everyone but can't physically, you need that person on your advisory board who can say no for you when you can't say no. There's also, someone who can be your BS meter, who can tell you the truth and you can hear it. Even if you don't want to hear the truth, sometimes we get so wrapped up in our ideas and our lives and we think everything is so great. And you need that truth teller to tell you,
it's almost like there are certain kind of needed roles on the team. Somebody's got to play, I don't know, sports, but power forward, point guard, whatever it is. And you assemble around that. Let me ask you one more question about the book before we wrap, which is, and by the way, there's the link again for the book, which is, I think a lot of people assume they have less privilege than they may because they've encountered difficulties in life. Everybody's encountered difficulties in life. And I've heard people, especially white men, even resent the word privilege because they say, I wasn't privileged. My mom, single, but blah, blah, insert story here. And we all have our stories on why our lives were difficult. When you say rich white guys, what do you mean?
So what I mean are those who are entitled. And so I had, in the 2016 election, I had a very good friend reach out to me. He is a rich white dude. I mean, all the privileges, like went to Harvard, went to Stanford. I mean, like every box you could possibly check. And so he was super angry and upset. And I gave him 5 minutes to vent. And then I said to him, you have a birthright. You are a rich white male and you are giving privileges that you may or may not deserve. And you're giving it whether you want it or not. Like people literally give you that privilege. When you walk into a store, I guarantee no one is looking at you and thinking that you can't pay. When I walk in a store, doesn't matter how much money I have, there is an assumption from some people that I cannot pay. You don't have that. You're Prince Harry. Like Prince Harry could never not be a royal, right? He could never give that back. Yeah. So you have this privilege. So use it. Like, don't be ashamed of it. Don't be afraid of it because it is what it is. Like you can't even like get rid of it if you don't want to. And what he said to me really blew my mind because I had never thought of it, privilege from the aspect of a rich white man before because I'm not a rich white man. And he said, I had never thought of it that way because I never looked behind me and saw that I was ahead of 99.9% of folks. All I knew is I wasn't Bill Gates. I wasn't Steve Jobs. I wasn't as privileged as those in front of me, right? And I thought that was just such an incredible way of and I'm so glad he expressed that to me because I never thought of that. Of course, you're not as privileged if you're only looking ahead of you, right? So your friends who are like, I resent that I came from a single mom and things like that. Of course, in their minds, they're not as privileged relative to Bill Gates or Elon Musk or whoever, grew up with family that had money. Of course, they're not as privileged. But if they took a little peek behind them, they would see that they're more privileged than pretty much everyone else.
Yeah, I love that way of looking at it. I think it's something that can apply. It certainly applies to me, applies to, I think, everybody, because we all have something we can be grateful for.
Yeah.
That I'm never going to walk into a room and be the coolest person walking into the room. It's just going to be a question of who has more or less hair than this next middle-aged white guy. But I think that awareness, we talk about it a lot on This Is Not Advice. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm a startup investor in the future work. We focus on these issues because we think that awareness can make people more effective. It can make people aware of how they are seen and therefore what kinds of things they can do more easily. And, in my case, I feel very fortunate. And my plan is to try to use it to the best of my ability for what I do, which is, raising the potential of others. But I love you putting it in that context. I love the plain talk. I mean, I think, as I think I've told you, I spent part-time in Milwaukee, but the Milwaukee part-time and the New Yorker in me just loves the Minnesota plain talk in you. So I really appreciate it.
There's no other way.
Well, I've heard of Minnesota nice, which means not really nice.
Not really nice.
But if people want to look, they can find the book here. And if you want to find past episodes of This Is Not Advice, you can find them here. This is the compendium of all the past episodes. Today's day 313. The reason we say it's not advice is we're not telling you how to live your life. We're offering our own experiences, even though Kathryn has plenty of advice to offer, and you can find it in the book. Right here, we're just sharing what our experiences are, and you're going to have to ultimately decide for yourself. Any parting thought before we go, Kathryn?
We're all just trying to live a creative life in which we can control. And
Amen.
entrepreneurship, work, all of that is just tools to get there.
I love that. I love that. Well, here's to all of us being able to have the power to control our own lives. And thank you. And to be continued. And if others have questions out there, you can always hit us up and we can ask the questions